right, we are going to begin studying for our safety test in science. The first thing that we discussed in science was fire safety in the fire triangle. We talked about the fact that you need three things for the fire triangle in order to make fire. Three items are needed. The first one is oxygen. Then you need heat also, and you need fuel. If you have these three things, you will have fire. So again, the three things you need for the fire triangle are oxygen, heat, and fuel. Well, let's move on to our next page here. There we go again. Oxygen, heat, and fuel are our three items in the fire triangle. Now, we did our fire triangle experiment. Remember our experiment? We used the candle, and we lit the candle, and we put the glass over, the jar over it, and we wanted to see if we got rid of or took away the oxygen, would we still have fire? And we discovered that we would not have fire any longer. So let's go on to what we learned in our fire triangle experiment. If you remove one leg of the triangle, the fire will go out. So if we take away the oxygen as we did in our experiment, the fire went out. If we let the candle burn all the way down and there was no more wax, which we determined was the fuel, the fire would go out. And if wind came along and blew out the heat, which is the fire, we wouldn't have fire. So we need to have all three, oxygen, heat, and fuel, to have fire. We also talked about the fact that fuels are solids, liquids, and gases. We know that it's a gas because when our wax burned, it lets off vapors. And those vapors, when they go up, when we took the match and we didn't touch the wick, we were able to light the candle without touching the wick because the wax vapors were going up towards our match and it caught on fire onto the wick. We know that fuels can be liquids. We talked about the fact that gasoline is a liquid and that it feeds the fire. And solids, we talked about the fact that wood and paper, leaves, all of those things are solids that we would fuel the fire or feed the fire. Heat sources, we talked about the fact that heat sources can be sparks, electrical energy, friction, and many other sources. Number 4, oxygen is all around us and we cannot control oxygen levels. We talked about the fact that it's out there in the air and we can't turn it up or down, the oxygen levels in the air, so we have no control over that. So we cannot control the oxygen levels. And number 5, when we see three parts of the fire triangle coming together, we call this a fire hazard. So we talked about the fact that sometimes when there are the fires that in California, when the wildfires, they have the heat, which well, let's start with the fuel. I'm sorry. The fuel are the dry grasses and the dry bushes. The oxygen is in the air, and then the heat is that spark. Maybe someone throws out a cigarette and it's not completely lit, or lightning could start, and that's the heat that starts the fire. So when we see those three parts of the triangle coming together, we know that we might have a fire hazard. And that's where our safety comes in, where we need to think about, well, what do we need to do? All right, so that was our fire triangle experiment.